Ah, I always hate having to hear my bio standing there. It's always so strange. All right, so now you know a lot about me, and I'm going to talk about something that wasn't really even mentioned in my bio. So this is a shameless plug. Anybody who knows me, I have a podcast. I just started a podcast. I'll talk about this a little bit because this was part of my dreaming. So you'll hear that story a little bit later. Agenda. I am newly defined as autistic and ADHD. So I like agendas. I love to know what's coming next. I have 20 minutes, so there you go for some of those people that need to know that. It probably will fly by. We're gonna do some shared language. I wanna make sure we're all talking about the same thing. Then we're gonna have some historical context. We're gonna talk about spaciousness versus constrictedness. And that was a wonderful topic that me and Brandy got to talk about when we were creating this. And I'm really excited about all the ways that's shown up since we've had our talk. What's necessary to dream, the art of dreaming, and then executing those dreams. Reverie. I did hear one person say that they had to look up the word. Anybody else have to look up the word reverie? It's okay. I had to look it up, obviously. I'm gonna ask a couple questions just to see who I'm in the room with. So is anyone here ever been called a daydreamer or like we could say a visionary? You can give me a hand raise, nod your head. Okay, love to see that. Anyone maybe like a primetime dissociator or like ADHD? You don't have to out yourself on that, that's cool. Nobody's gonna hear this information, like they can't see you. All right, and then anybody ever invested in a dream, $1 or more, like invested in a dream, yours or someone else's? Love to see it. And the last question, anyone in here sitting on a dream right now? Okay, cool. Well then, we're obviously in the right place. And we're gonna talk about reverie. The etymology for reverie is it's French. And I, back in the day, used to speak a little French. I wound up transferring to a school where I had to take Spanish. They didn't have French, but I've been to France. And the word actually means madness, delirious, right? And so creatives are often known as delirious, a little mad. And it has translated into a meaning today of getting lost in a daydream, right? And so we're gonna talk about the different ways that dreams can show up and how that looks. But just know that like it's okay to be, has anybody ever been called a little delirious or a little mad? I was a Division I college athlete, and you absolutely have to be a little mad to play college basketball, right? My body's paying for it now, but that's fine, that's another talk. And I think when we think of delirious, there's this stigma around delirium that says that it's not okay, right? Or there's something wrong with it. And normally the people that are calling people delirious are the people that are inside the boxes. And then they're calling those people that are outside the boxes, especially creatives, delirious and mad. We're gonna talk a little bit about who gets to dream. And I wanna note the difference in dreaming. So I think there's a couple types of daydreaming, if you will. It can also be synonymous with dissociating, not to be confused with disassociating. Dissociating is the act of, leaving a space energetically, right? Going to your happy place. I saw some ADHD hands, so I know you'll probably leave and come back a few times within this talk. That's great. I hope you go somewhere really wonderful, right? Just come back. But as we talk about who gets to dream, I want to think about the couple ways that historically we have dreamed. When we think about dreaming in the sense of history, there have been a lot of indigenous tribes, and dreaming is a sacred practice, right? So dreaming is a sacred practice where you can touch other realms, you can touch people and spirits in other realms, you can get downloads, you can get messages, and you obviously need space to do that. In the capitalist form, it is kind of having a dream maybe of wealth or something like that. And also, it means that you have room. So we're gonna be talking a lot about spaciousness. And historically, we're not gonna quite as much talk about the indigenous sacred practices. I do wanna acknowledge those of dreaming. And I hope that, whatever your spiritual practice is or whatever that looks like, that you find ways to connect with the other realms and spirit and ancestor and all of those things. We're going to talk today about daydreaming in the sense of dreams becoming reality, and what does it mean to actually dream? What does it mean to have the spaciousness, the privilege, the ability to dream? And when I think about dreaming, historically, we know about oppression. America, let's talk about America specifically. There are hundreds of years where people that look like me didn't get to dream, where sleep was something that restored you for the work for the next day, where it was a luxury to dream about anything. And so I just want to acknowledge the fact that all of us being here in this room is a magical moment. I think of wonder and awe and the fact that we all are here. All of our life choices, everything that we've ever done has led us to this moment. There will never be another moment like this again. And I find wonder and awe in those moments, and I try to breathe into those moments of presence. And so as you're sitting here, just know we can breathe into those moments of presence. All right, let's talk about dreaming. Spaciousness versus constriction. I want to tell a story. And I'm in House of Olokun, so you'll notice people use lots of different pronouns for me. It's cool. You probably won't offend me with any of them. I am in House of Olokun, which is a cohort for Black trans folks and gender nonconforming folks around ancestral, historical, and African practices spiritually. And we had a retreat, and we've been meeting virtually for the past 5 months or so, but we had a retreat in March. And so I get on the plane, but even before getting on the plane, I had a person call me. And so around trans and gender nonconforming folks, I don't know if you think about this, if you're not trans or gender nonconforming, but when you're getting flights, they have to do male or female on the checklist, right? They have to use your government or legal name. So we had someone walk us through this practice and was like, I know this is hard, but please tell me your legal name. They filled out all the forms. We didn't have to do anything. We just sat with them on the phone, and they were like, it's okay. They took care of us through that whole process. They gave me a couple $100s to make sure I got Uber and got where I needed to get to the airport. I get there, get my car, and I pull up, and it's this house in Decatur, Atlanta area, Georgia. And it is trees in the back. I walk in, and there's an altar, and there's candles and crystals. This room is large. There's this huge living room. I'm greeted. It's hey, Karen, how are you doing? It's coming home to family. And then I have this little bag, and they're like, this is your bag for the weekend. And there's, some ancestral chalk, candles, beads. There's beads out, and they're like, make beads. Everybody's kind of coming in. We all know our flight schedules because we've all been talking on WhatsApp. And so we know what time people are coming in, and then we greet them. They're like, go pick out a room, whichever room you want. Right? And so I go pick the room that I want, and then we come in there and we're beating and we're talking, and the whole weekend was structured, but spacious. So when I think about spaciousness, I want you to take a moment to kind of think of a time when you had just a lot of room to breathe, to think, to be in community, to learn, to write. Before every session, I started, I'm a poet, and before every session, I would wind up writing these poems, and they were these praise poems. And I was like, I wonder what this is coming from. I would just be sitting there while everybody kind of got ready for the day. Somebody was making breakfast. We were sitting there, and we were like, okay, we know we're going to start. Nothing started on an alarm clock. We were like, all right, it's 10. We're going to get started now. Everybody kind of bring their blankets or bring whatever we were going to do. And I started writing these things, and now I know they're orikis, which are praise poems. But it would be in gratitude for the space that was there. During that time, I created 4 or 5 of those in 3 days, right? Just praise poems. I had, we did some spiritual journey around our youth. It was a fantastic experience. The last day, I get up in the morning because I'm a morning person. So I'm a morning person. I don't normally talk to people before 11. You're welcome. And I just wanted to clarify context. All right, so I went to the airport, and immediately I was like, oh, this is stifled and jarred by the world. And I was like, this place is not made for me. I'm a number here, right? So I immediately started to feel this constriction. And I've done some talks around adaptive strategies and nervous systems. I was actually surprised that they wanted to talk about Reverie and not that today. So I was like, okay, cool. But like when I think about my nervous system and what happened when I walked into the airport and I was in lines and they were like, over here. And it was like the Atlanta airport, you know what I mean? So it's like, they don't care who I am. So, like I was thrown into this line, thrown into that line, go over here. Like they wouldn't look me in the eyes. It was tight, the lines, everybody was really close together. And I was just like, whoa, this is really constricted. And so I kind of dissociated into a place where I was safe. You can dissociate in or out. And so I dissociated in and I was like, all right, let's just get home, right? During the plane ride, we're all tight on the plane ride. So during the plane ride, I have a mask on. Like I'm not thinking freely. There was no writing. I just listened to music and I counted down the moments until I could get home again, where there's some spaciousness there, thankfully, for me in my home. I hope your home is a space where you can feel spaciousness. So this concept of spaciousness, I'm sure you can think of times, more than not, at times in our lives, we're pretty constricted. We're pretty constricted, whether it's deadlines, whether it's the people around us, whether it's societal constructs and norms that we're supposed to abide by and adhere to. We understand constriction pretty well. And that's why I put you can't really see it that great on here. That's a jail cell. And that's not to say that people that have ever, been confined haven't dreamed and executed on their dreams. There's a certain amount of resilience that comes with that. And that's never to diminish the ability to have a dream in constriction and then still execute. That's a powerful notion. But the idea is that the more spaciousness you have, the more ability you have to dream. And when I think about rest, like who gets to rest? To dream, you have to be able to rest, even if it's just sitting for a moment and not sleeping, but resting. You still have to be able to rest. And we also know historically that there are certain folks that have had more access to rest. So thinking about spaciousness in your day, how often do you get to take a second, step back, and breathe, and rest, and think about what you want to create? So what's necessary to dream? I want to talk about this real quick from a right relationship standpoint. I know this is a big communal space, and the idea of right relationship, how many of you are into biodiversity and ecology, side nerds about trees and stuff? Yeah, what's up, climate control people? Okay, so when I think about this, I have some really fun stuff. I did some stuff with Future 50 on climate reality. We call it climate reality, climate crisis now. It's not like climate change anymore, right? So talking about trees, the cool thing about trees is that they have root systems. And with the root systems, their trees get what they need. So if a tree needs more nutrients on a given day, it gets it, nobody's mad, no trees are yelling at each other, all the trees get what they need. Ideally in community, that's how we work. We call it right relationship. It's this notion of oneness, that we are all connected, everything is interconnected, right? And so when I think of right relationship with self and right relationship with others, are we creating safety? Are we protecting safety, connection, belonging, and dignity? So if we're in right relationship, we're connecting, we're safe, we're protecting those dignity and connection moments, right? That's first and foremost necessary within yourself. And then that's necessary in community, right? So now we have spaciousness, right relationship. I can think of other things. You probably need some constraints on those dreams, moving from the actual daydreaming thing to execution, right? We need resources. We absolutely need resources. All of you, probably about 3/4 of you said that you invested in dreams, yours or someone else's. So we need resources. So let's keep that simple 4 things as the things that we need to dream. The art of dreaming. I just got cool pictures because I have ADHD, and so I just needed to remember what I was talking about. We're gonna do a little practice. We're gonna take about a minute, and I want you all, I'm gonna give you 2 practices, 2 tools that you can take with you to dream, all right? So in your seats, if you can, put both feet on the ground, and I want you to look up at this beautiful engineering right here. And I want you to put your hands, kind of frame your face. And if you can lower your gaze onto your nose a little bit without cross-eyeing maybe, or if you imagine a filter, it would be like the portrait filter in your brain, okay? And we're just gonna sit here for a moment, breathing in through your nose and out through your nose. We're just gonna see what comes. No judgment. Just breathing into it. Just notice your thoughts. No judgment of them. I'm counting down a minute. No pressure for anything to come. I'm going to go about 10 more seconds. Whatever comes. And as you start to relax your hands, and yes, you have to look at me for about 5 more minutes, something may come to you. If you're like me, I have like 500 notes on my phone, so you may want to write something down. If something came to you, go for it. I did this exercise, and within 2 minutes, I popped up, me and my wife were doing this exercise, and I popped up, and I said, restorative equity through sustainable transformation. She's like, what's that? And I'm like, it's rest. The Ohio Rest Collective was created in 2021. We work with leaders, we work with individuals, we work with communities on regulating nervous systems. And when I talk about restorative equity, of course, we talk about the notion of equity, getting people what they need, closing that gap and disparity of access to resources, of opportunities. But I came up with that in that exercise. Now, that exercise was like, great, we have a vision. Now, getting to that, executing that looked like creating an LLC, getting a bank account, going in there and doing all these things. She made the website. Like, there were all these things that had to come with the execution of that dream. But without the dream, those things don't exist. We've worked with people nationally, the This Is Jane project in LA, who helps people who are survivors that also use cannabis. We've worked with local organizations here. We've worked with local individuals about regulating nervous systems and leadership being an inside job. And it's been really beautiful. But the dream came from an act of visioning. The other thing that you can do, the other tool that I'll give you, I love to put on my sound canceling headphones and listen to beach sounds or like water, rain. Some of you, that might not work. Don't do that like going to sleep because it might get interesting, like with what happens with your body when you're listening to those sounds. But like whatever sounds are relaxing. I love lo-fi. My wife hates it. I love lo-fi, and it's like just instrumentals or like some sort of jazz or classical music. When I write my poetry or like when I'm organizing a show flow or when I'm getting ready to produce a show, I will listen to instrumentals and just create. And my Einstein hours are like 6 to 8 a.m. That's when I have the best time to creating. If you don't know your Einstein hours, get close to your Einstein hours. The time when you're the most brilliant creatively, when your crown chakra is like just going off. And block off that time. Don't talk to anybody as much as you can every day. Spend your time with yourself in those creative hours. So those are some tools to take with you. And executing dreams, what would it look like for us to create that environment for each other, for ourselves, that I got at the House of Olokun retreat? To walk in and be like, this space was made for me. This is a place where I can create, where I can dream. And how would it look? Not like a leveraging privilege type of thing, but how would it look as a tree maybe with more nutrients given to you naturally and organically to provide support for those other trees of us in the community that need some more nutrients? What would it look like to create spaciousness together? As you work and you create and you build in community, how often can you share that space that you're creating that is welcoming, that is safe, that holds the dignity of every person's life there? How often can you do that? Make that your goal. I'm not going to talk about equity in the terms of like reparations and you owe me. No, like how can I build community in right relationship where people get the things they need, where people know that this space was made with them in mind? You know the difference when somebody is tolerating you and when somebody's actually inviting, welcoming, and affirming to you and actually created something with your identity, your lived experience centered. So what does it mean to create those spacious opportunities in our lives for each other and first for ourselves? I hope you get to create some of those spaces. That's the Ohio Rest Collective. And there's my link tree with all the things I'm doing, improv comedy. I have been able to, recently, I was getting coached around that. Coaches get coaches. I'm gonna tell you that right now. And if you're getting a coach, don't trust a coach that doesn't have a coach. All right, get a coach. I had a coach, and they were like, we worked through all these things, and they were like, what do you want to create? I hadn't thought about it because I was in a phase of like performance and going out on the road and being public. And so I hadn't been in a creation phase for a while. And we worked through some stuff. We did some parts work. We talked about trauma. We talked about all kind of stuff. So that's another notion, is to heal, right? And your work, your creativity can be healing. But what I would say about that is, after we talked for about an hour, and she asked me one question, what are you afraid of? And I was like, oh, wow, I'm afraid of being seen. So I had to like deal with that and process that. The next thing was, I was like, I think I want to create a Patreon, do a podcast, and do social media for like this culture of youth thing. And so we did that all in like one day. Like, it was like a 6-hour coaching session. We like to do a full day. But all of that came from processing and the space she created. When I walk in there, she's got like all these incense. She's got lo-fi on. It's a brilliant little loft downtown. And I felt safe enough after I had acknowledged what I was afraid of to be like, this is what I want to create. And so we launched all of that in February. I had no idea how I was going to do it because I like have a real day job. Like, it's not like I just can just float around and create. And it was beautiful. And I could not have imagined that I would create all of the things I do. I was talking to somebody at work, and they said, you've lived like 90 years in your 40 years. And I agree. I joke about writing this book called Nobody Feels Sorry for Me, right? Because I've had all these brilliant experiences. I'll add this to that list. But I really hope you get the chance, and I hope something landed today for you, to give yourself some space to dream. Creatives need space to do nothing, to think. And I hope you find that space and time and the people around you that will hold your dreams, hold it tenderly, love and care for you, and make sure that your dreams come to fruition. Thank you.